So why have I decided that the Gather Round curriculum is not the curriculum for us? I'm going to talk about the cost. I'm going to talk about the things that I did like about the units that we did, as well as the things that we did not like. And I'm also going to talk about what the Gather Round curriculum says that it's going to deliver and whether or not it delivered that. I'm really nervous about making this video. I don't want to upset people. It's not a video that I want to make, but I feel like for those of you who are researching what curriculums to purchase, how to purchase homeschool curriculum, this is going to be information for you to consider for your family. Let me just start out by saying this. My family is not your family. Our style is not your style. So while this may not have worked for us, that does not mean that it will not work for you. So maybe that will alleviate some of the blow if some of you guys really love this unit. Could also be the stage of life that you're in. I've seen a lot on Instagram and on YouTube, a lot of families with a lot of younger kids who really love this. Well, I have older kids. I have a range. I have a child who pretty much needs me to help her with everything up until middle school. So my perspective is early reader, upper elementary, and middle school. Let me back up. Why did we choose Gather Round in the first place? I really wanted to use this year to bond as a family. So the family style curriculum was very appealing to me, especially the family style curriculum that said it was from pre-reader all the way through high school and that you could all do it together as a family. Of course, that's what I want. I don't want to teach every subject for every single grade. Probably most homeschool moms, they don't want to do that either. So I love the idea of the family style learning and learning all together in the family bonding, which is one of the things that it says it's going to deliver. Let me first start out by talking about what is the cost of the Gather Round curriculum. The cost is going to depend on how frequently you do it. The cost is going to depend on whether or not you use this as your only curriculum. It claims that it's an all-inclusive curriculum. I think everything except for math. So it's supposed to include in every unit except the mini units, but in every full-scale unit, it's supposed to include history, science, geography, writing, language arts, handwriting practice, some art. That's what it says it's going to provide. I purchased this thinking it was really going to be just for science and history. I wasn't going to hold my breath that it was going to be a all-inclusive curriculum. That just seemed too good to be true. But I was willing to give it a try. I did flip through it online. You know, sometimes you just can't know until you actually try it out. So the cost for my 3 kids, I purchased a mini unit and a full-scale unit. It's a $50 digital download plus whatever it costs you to print it. So I can print it on my home printer at 6 cents a sheet. It costs my family about $80 per unit for me to buy the digital copy and print it myself. I think I calculated plus shipping and handling, if I were to purchase it from Gather Round, it would be $120. So if you have more kids, printing it at home is going to be the way to go. If you have less kids, maybe just buying it outright from them might be the way to go. So if I was going to do 10 units a year, which some people do, I was tempted when they had their sale in July, I was tempted to take advantage of the discount and buy extra units. But being the experienced homeschool mom that I am, I thought, no, I need to try this out first. I have bought way too many curriculums only to be disappointed a few weeks in and decide I needed to change.
So I restrained myself. So proud of myself.
But I only purchased 2 units. But if I had purchased the 10 units, if you were going to do this every day as an all-inclusive, then for my family, it would have been $800 for me to print it myself, which would be $267 per kid. Just to give you some perspective there as you are considering other curriculums. $267 per child if it's going to include all of your subjects. Now, do I think it's really an all-inclusive curriculum? I have things to say about that, so I will get into that later in the video. Let me talk about what I liked about the gather round units. I mentioned I loved the idea of the family style and learning it all together, and I really did enjoy saying, okay, everybody, let's come together and we're going to learn this together, and have the discussions that we had from my 7-year-old all the way up to my middle schooler. The aesthetics of the curriculum is beautiful, and I point that out in my flip through videos. You can see the beautiful artwork, the watercolor designs. It's just very pleasing to look at. As an adult, I enjoyed the information a lot. It was very good information, especially the government unit. So check out that review. I like that they have a variety of topics to choose from. I was very interested in the earth science. They have a year 2 now, so there's just a ton of different units to choose from now. I love that. I love that within the earth science, it talked about weather, but it also talked about volcanoes. In fact, we watched Dante's Peak on the volcano unit. So if you have kids that can handle a little bit of fear, there's a lot of science in the Dante's Peak movie. So there's a little tip for you if you do their science unit and you like that. I like that there's a community on Facebook, and there's a community through the apps, and there's a Trello boards community or something, where there's just a lot of mamas out there who love to plan and love to plan extras, and they're sharing all these ideas. There's ideas galore out there for every unit. Maybe not so much for the brand new units, but if the units have been around a while, there's just a ton of ideas already shared. So what did I not like about it? I felt like there was too much for me still to do for planning. When I got all of these units, I noticed through all these groups, all of these other moms just really digging into the plans, and they're adding this and adding that. And I was asking myself, I thought this was an open and go curriculum. Am I really supposed to be doing all of this extra research now to be adding to it? Now, I suppose if you're considering it your all-inclusive curriculum, but again, at $267 a kid, I don't want to have to do all of this extra planning. Now, getting library books, because there were book suggestions, I expect that. I expect, obviously, to have to buy supplies. One thing I really did not like right off the bat was there was no supply list at the beginning of the earth science unit. I don't know if they've corrected that for year 2, but I did not like not having a supply list. Probably some of that was because every unit was like, well, you could do this or you could do this. So it's really up to you to decide what you want to do and then make your own supply list. I just want an open and go. I am a busy mom. Every stage feels busy. So you younger moms, you're busy. Well, the school day is already a long day, and then grading stuff, and then planning your next day or planning your next step. Homeschooling is a big job, right? So I want planning done for me. And if I want to supplement, then I will. But I really am looking, for me, I want an open and go curriculum. This was open and go to a degree. I didn't add a whole lot of extra. I did watch their extra videos and one of their supplemental science experiments, but I did not do the amount of planning that some of these other moms do and are really gung-ho about and creating Trello boards for. So regarding the no supplies, no upfront scope and sequence, in order to utilize this lesson planner, which I never referred to again, but I had to go into every single lesson and write down what were the subjects for each week, just so that I could have an idea of what we were talking about, because this was not laid out for me at all, and it soon became very overwhelming. As you can see, there's a lot of topics here for this to cover in one day. This is the only scope that's given in the table of contents, and they are all science topics, none of the history or any other topic. So that's all on teacher, and this is where you can find what might be needed every single day. Well, here's an activity thrown in here, but I have to search for this. It wasn't like laid out nicely. And then here's an assignment, work in your notebook. Here's some other sources you could look into. Here for each one of your children's notebooks, here's what they're doing for this subject. Here's what they're doing for this subject. But I have to go and look at every single one for every single week. There's no, for week 1, here are the supplies you need, and here are all of the activities you're going to be doing. So I mentioned with the earth science, if you watched my comparison video for earth science and the good and the beautiful, the gather round information is the teacher reading it, or if you cast it onto the TV, I suppose your students could read it, but it's like reading a textbook. It was interesting for me. It really was not interesting at all for my younger ones. In fact, most of the time my 7-year-old fell asleep. It was kind of boring for her. No, this was our science. Again, maybe there's another unit that would have been more exciting to her. So having said that, by the time we were done reading, after an hour, we were all just done. Now, I was doing this at the end of the day because I was trying to get our Bible is always done first. I tried to get our math done and our language arts done first thing, because to me, those are the most important subjects at this age. We did not do this every day. I did my own language arts for each of my kids because I think it's really important to learn how to communicate and learn proper grammar and learn parts of speech and all the little intricacies of our grammar and how to write a paper and all that. That takes time to teach, and I wanted to make sure that it was incorporated. If I would have seen that Gather Round truly was a language arts curriculum in this unit, I probably would have set that stuff aside. But in the earth science, I definitely did not see that. I saw a lot of for my junior higher, and he did not like this either. It felt like every single day was, go research this topic and write a paragraph. Go research this topic and write a paragraph. Well, how do you write a paragraph? It certainly wasn't taught in this curriculum, so then I'm teaching him how to write a paragraph, which is fine. I can teach him how to write a paragraph. But then what am I paying for the curriculum for again? What am I paying for? Am I just paying for lesson plans and ideas? And then I have to teach everything else on my own? Like, this is where I was having the conundrum here. Let's look at my middle schoolers' scope and sequence for this unit. As you know, the older your children get, the more work they need to do. And when you have younger students, it's probably less important that they cover all things science and all things social studies. I mean, to me, when your kids are young, reading, writing, arithmetic, those are the most important things to cover, and everything else is bonus. But there is a systematic thing that needs to happen with language arts, and I will also cover what the art in this all-inclusive program really was. So I wish that I had looked closer at this language arts here for my middle schooler, because if you look at it, here's what's being covered: parentheses, rules, synonyms, and then a bunch of spelling words. For writing, a lab report, introduction, all things lab report, poetry and refrains, and note-taking. To me, a lab report is more science, not language arts. And I will just say that yes, he was given assignments to write paragraphs, but nothing in here for really how to write a paragraph, how to mix up sentence openers, where to effectively add adverbs and topic clincher sentences in paragraphs, how to title your papers. All of that sort of process on how to write a paper is not here. It's basically just, here's your topic to write a paper on. And so let me give you an example. For the history, it was basically, here's your little blurb and go do your own research, write something about it. This isn't a real history curriculum. I mean, I can go get little books here and there on my own and have my kids read little books and write a paragraph about it. This is not in the teacher's manual. So this is lesson 3. Lesson 3 is all science. Science, 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 and then this. My upper elementary was basically the exact same assignment. Here's the little blurb, write something. The only difference was my middle school, write down your sources. So the upper elementary, what is that? 4th to 6th grade, and this is 6th to 8th grade. So from 4th to 8th grade, no difference in assignment there. Language arts Bible, write this verse. There's your language arts. Oh, and then the taking of the notes is language arts. Well, that's a skill. That's a skill. I don't know that that's language arts, learning how to take notes, because you're abbreviating. You're really learning how to listen. I wouldn't call that language arts. Just write the Bible verse. There's your language arts for the day, for middle school. Now we're getting into your science lab report. So my son had a long science journal with classical conversations last year when they did actual science experiments with lab journals. And I will say it was completely separate from our language arts, which was the lost tools of writing. So writing a lab report Of course, you're going to have spelling and punctuation, but here's the history again for lesson 7. Read this and answer these questions. So again, write a paragraph. I mean, I suppose if your middle schooler is taking time to dig deeper in this, which I know is the vision of Gather Round, is that they will go dig deeper. But I don't know, I feel like not every kid learns that way. Some kids need more direction, and then again, that's falling on mom. I just think this curriculum is for a specific style of learner. And this is the extent of the art. Here, draw this. Draw this. I mean, it even says that in the beginning. Art, tsunami scene, sandstone rock formations, aurora borealis. That one was painting, but it was still copy this picture with some paint. Here's the tsunami scene. Try your hand at drawing a tsunami wave. Use various art mediums and attempt to show depth and height. I am not an art major. How do you do this? How do you teach art? I mean, this is one of the main differences that I saw between this and The Good and the Beautiful that my son is using now. They have art projects in there, and The Good and the Beautiful lays out how to do the art projects. So like when he was doing a pastel project, first do this with your pastels, and here's some various techniques you can use, and then add this layer. I mean, it went step by step how to do the art project. I can give my son a picture and say, here, draw this. This was disappointing. To me, this is not all inclusive. For younger kids, maybe. My upper elementary, her book was a little bit more to her grade level for the language arts in terms of what it asked her to do. I mean, she basically had the same thing as my middle schooler. Write out this verse. I need my middle schooler to be learning more than just that. So here's a language arts we did not do, because again, we do master books for this, but learning about synonyms, I mean, that's good. A little bit easier for this grade level, but I just didn't see a difference between the upper elementary and the middle school besides here, go do a bunch of research. And if you have a middle schooler, you will also know you don't necessarily want them getting online without you. So there's more time for mom if you need to supervise the getting online, or you need to have books ready to go, which, like I said, which is why I had to do all this. Well, what kinds of books do I get? I needed this already laid out for me so I know what books to have or what books to pull aside. So there you go. There was history, but it was a lot of read this paragraph, do some research, write a paragraph. That was the extent of the history curriculum, and the art extent was here, copy this picture. If you are going to dig deeper, which I felt like a lot of these do your research and dig deeper would have just taken a lot of extra time. I can't see this vision that they're saying where you're not doing school all day. I don't see it. I saw this as being a lot of extra time if you're going to dig into this topic and then move on the very next day. And having said that, if you don't, say you only do it every other day, which then you really could dig deeper and your child could take time to do research the one day and then write the paragraph properly using introductory sentences, making sure they decorate it with adverbs and different openers, dependent clause openers, and they're actually learning how to write a paper in the way that, say, IEW teaches it. That takes time. You can't just whip that out. You have to take time to teach that to your child. Gather Round was not providing the structure with how to teach that. So that's why a lot of people supplement with that. If you're doing it every other day, then it's not all inclusive, is it? You need this every day, or at least 4 days a week if you have younger kids. But the older your kids get, you need language arts every day. So if you're going to dig deeper into social studies or science or one of these history topics, I mean, they actually on this one also suggested some videos to watch. So if you're going to dig deeper into this topic and maybe take 2 days for it, then you're going to miss out on an actual language arts lesson, maybe another Bible lesson. So I asked my middle schooler what he thought of the curriculum. He said it was easy if there was no paper to write, but like one of his very first assignments, again, if you're doing this every single day, okay, think about this. This was one of his very first assignments. Write a paper on young Earth versus new Earth.
That's a longer assignment than 1 day. Seriously.
I mean, I guess I could say that's due next week, but he had like little research things every single day. That requires researching, it requires formatting an argument. It requires structuring a paper. So that was more of a project than a one-day assignment. This is why people are supplementing, because they want direction.
Mama's got decision fatigue. I don't want to plan everything out.
If you only had one child, then this curriculum, I could see why it could work for you, because you're only planning for one child. I only have 3 children. I can't imagine having 6 children at all these various levels and then having to figure out where the gaps are and then figure out where you have to fill it in. So if you are supplementing with another curriculum, say you're supplementing with math anyway. So math curriculums can be $50 to $100 depending on what curriculum you choose, maybe even more. And then your language arts curriculum, depending on what you choose, like master books, language lessons for a living education is a very inexpensive curriculum, around $35. But then there are more expensive curriculums, like maybe you're going to get a grammar curriculum and a writing curriculum because your child needs that and that. I have a daughter who really struggles with spelling. I need a very specific curriculum to concentrate on that. I can't do an all-inclusive language arts curriculum because she has a very specific need. Sometimes you have that with your children, and so you have to supplement. Sometimes these all-inclusive curriculums, they just can't work for everybody. We're not all the same. And so then if I'm tailoring this curriculum myself, then I'm doing all this extra planning. Or if I'm buying this extra curriculum, well, now my cost per child isn't $267. Now my cost per child for their full year's curriculum is $400, maybe $500. You see where I'm going with this? And I'm still having to do all of this extra planning. So this curriculum, I feel, is very expensive. It seems like it's not, but if it's going to be your main curriculum, it's going to be expensive either with your time, or it's going to be expensive with all of the extra things you're going to need to purchase to fill in the gaps that it has. There are certain things in teaching, like grammar and writing in particular, where it's very systematic. You have to build a foundation first. Their levels are kind of broad. Like they have the pre-reader, the early reader, the early elementary. So their levels maybe cover 2 to 3 years. And then there's not a certain order that you can do the units. So how is this foundation being built? I'm not seeing the vision here. So maybe this is a suggestion for Gather Round. Maybe they need to put together a broad scope and sequence for very specific grammar elements that they are teaching and when, so that looking into this as a mom, you know, well, when is this being taught and when is this being taught? Because like I said, they didn't even have that in their table of contents for earth science. I had no idea what grammar element was being taught what week. It was not in there. The only way I could figure that out is to read through every single lesson and every book and figure out what it was, and then ask myself, is this good enough? Should I supplement? It's just...
This is why I'm not continuing with it.
So one of the things that Gather Round says, this is about family connection, exploring together, making lessons come to life. I just don't feel like that's what it delivers. Maybe if all of your kids are very close to the same age or they're in the same learning stage, you could explore together. But is my middle schooler going to explore together with my 7-year-old? No. Even Gather Round didn't have that. He did his individual assignment. I can't imagine having a high schooler and a younger one and saying, hey, we're going to explore together. No, they're on completely different intellectual levels. They're going to go do their individual exploring. And then having experienced the good and the beautiful science, like that provided family connection for us. That really was like everybody was engaged. Everybody was enjoying the experiments. Everybody was enjoying the little activities. That provided the exploring together. Gather Round most days didn't. It was we were sitting around the table, we were learning together, but then we were going and doing our separate notebook pages. Not together, separate. The mini units are, in my opinion, might be a little bit better because they are a little bit more focused. They don't claim to be all-inclusive. I enjoyed, personally, the government unit better because it was shorter. You can go look at my review on the government as to whether I think that that's a family subject. I can totally understand why some people love this. So I just want to say that. I am not saying that this is a horrible curriculum and nobody should do it. That is not what I'm saying at all. I don't want to paint this curriculum with a broad brush and say it's horrible, but I also don't want to paint it with a broad brush and say it's going to work for everybody. To me, it just seems like a one subject unit and then some notebooking pages, some themed notebooking pages, and some ideas for things that you could do to add to it. But an all-inclusive curriculum, I just don't see it for the older levels. For the younger levels, maybe, but for definitely not for middle school. And I just can't imagine how this could possibly be enough for high school. I want an open and go curriculum. I don't want to do additional planning. I want to know what the supply list is. I want to know what the subjects are for the week so that I know what library books to get. I want the curriculum to tell me that. And I want it to be a curriculum that I want to do. And probably a little, not even halfway through the earth science, I just did not want to do it. I wasn't enjoying it. My kids weren't enjoying it. It just felt like a drudge. And so we didn't even finish it. We didn't. I wish that I would have printed the free trial, because the earth science at that time, I don't know if it still does, it had 7 lessons you could download for free and try it for your family. So I highly recommend, if you are looking into this curriculum, you download those free 7 days of lessons and you try it out first before you purchase it and see if it's everything you thought, because after 7 lessons, I feel like that's when I knew. Check out all the other YouTube reviews where the moms love it. Don't let me tell you not to do this. It did not work for our family. It does not mean that it won't work for yours. So, until next time.